back for summer. I don't think that's the right way around, is it? How are we all? Good morning, Leanne H, Brenda McGee, Fiona Reid, Gabrielle, Tim Reid, Ishbel Ality, Olivia Thompson, Mandy C, Claire Yardley, Lynn Sheard. Lynn Sheard not going to watch the Meghan and Harry interview. Interesting. These are funny things, aren't they? These sort of seismic, sort of, I don't know, sort of showbiz moments. I suppose it is quite showbiz, isn't it? Or, you know, these kind of great big things. People do sort of fall into two camps. People either get sort of really cross about it and don't want to be part. I mean, you know, I personally have absolutely zero, you know, passionate interest in the royals or what Harry and Meghan get up to. I mean, you know, I couldn't care less. I mean, I'll judge them on what they do. If they made an interesting series for Netflix and I watched it and I liked it, I'd be like, oh yeah, they made a nice series for Netflix. But when you have these cultural events, these moments, these significant happenings, it's more than just the event, if you know what I mean. It's an opportunity to take the pulse on people's opinions, attitudes, where people are at. It's a thing, isn't it? It's a sort of, you know, in TV terms, they call it the water cooler moment, don't they? It's like everyone around the water cooler has an opinion. And I think as being in a social community, we all have an opinion on it. And I think everyone will have an opinion on this. And surely, absolutely, respect to those who don't want to watch it and think it's a load of nonsense. But we'll get onto it in a minute. Of course, so many people will probably just be coming back from the school run or still be in the school run. Nads is on loose today. And lots of people probably not doing the school run because, of course, it's a graduated return. Some people going back this Thursday. Wow, back to school. How was it? Bethy Kitch, you're in a lecture. Don't turn the volume up. No, have you got your headphones on? What lecture is it? What's it for? Is it interesting? Clearly not. Wonder Woman, Piers Morgan has angered me so much this morning. He's not held back, has he? But then he never does, really, does he? He's... David Etchells, I think, is expressing an opinion. I think there's a very strong body of opinion like yours, David Etchells, that says there's so much more serious stuff going on in the world. I agree, obviously agree. You can't not agree. But I think that presupposes this idea that only one thing can happen when one thing's happening in the world. Do you know what I mean by that? It's kind of like, well, yes, there is awful stuff going on in the world, but this is also happening in the world. And so it's less about whether it should happen or why it's happened. It's happened. It's been done. The interview is going on. And there we go. I mean, I saw a number of people commented. We left a comment this morning on our community tab. And quite a few people were sort of saying, you know, it's not about whether, why, should they, shouldn't they. Here we go, Sky Black. I think we're past the should they, shouldn't they have given the interview part of this at this point. It's time to listen to what they said and question if a monarchy is something which fits into modern life or what the future of the monarchy should look like. Now, we're in a strange position where we haven't seen the entire, obviously, show yet. We're going to watch it tonight as it goes out in the UK. And so much can be gleaned from people's body language. But one thing I'm not doing is going into it prejudging. And I think that's one of the things I've been most shocked by in everything, is that everyone seems to have a very, very, very strong opinion on Meghan and Harry prior to the interview. And I think, I think there's good reason for that. We've seen, we've seen what's happened in the press. But yeah, Louise Neveu, don't say that. Apparently ITV editing it down. That's not what we bought into. What's that about? What are they editing it down into an hour? Highlights. It's the nuance, it's the detail, it's the shades, it's the little bits in between that I'm interested in. It's how things are said and why things are said. Back to school. So obviously back to school. I mean, all of the papers, lots of the front pages, lots of the press, whether you're into it or not into it, are looking at the Meghan Harry thing. And I think, again, going back to this idea that this is just a significant cultural happening. It's a cultural event, isn't it? It's a massive deal. Regardless of whether you don't even believe in the monarchy, it's like, well, it's historic. It's a moment, isn't it? It's something that we're all going to talk about. I don't want an edit of it, K-Ray. I don't either. I mean, that's frustrating as hell. I can't get the CBS app over here. You have to have an American zip code to do it. I've tried it. So the thing is, for me, is that this is a sort of opportunity they feel to express their opinion from their point of view. And I think we have to, there's countless different ways of approaching this subject. And I think, Piers Morgan, for example, he attacked this morning saying it's supposed to be a warts and all interview about everything, but it avoided or didn't include any conversation about her relationship with her family, the lack of communication or connectivity with many aspects of her family. And so, in that sense, it's not about everything to do with the couple. It very much is an interview in which they're wanting, I think, to put their side of the story across in opposition to a machine which, if I'm honest, only 3 minutes ago, we were all decrying the firm, as it's called, in the way in which they're being so sort of difficult to pin down on the Prince Andrew scandal. They can, I think there's a lot more control and PR management at work in the royal family than any of us would care to think. And that's not to say that Queenie's sitting there, Machiavellianly kind of working stuff out. But I think we have to accept that it's an enormously old, about as old as you can get, institution with an enormous vested interest in protecting itself. So there's that aspect. So I think this idea that it's a sort of, beautiful, idyllic, innocent game of croquet at Buckingham Palace where it's all just garden parties and da-da-da-da-da is nonsense. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors. User one, you're absolutely right. And so consequently, I think we're never going to be able to prove anything. But what was interesting from what I'm reading about Meghan's side of things is that in almost every aspect of what she talked about, she backed it up with some element of evidential proof that she may well have. For example, so the conflict in inverted commas about dresses. I mean, for goodness sake, could anyone really cry about a bride's dress? I mean, either way, could anyone actually cry? I don't know. She says she has a note from Kate and she has a bunch of flowers. They mentioned the fact that someone in the royal family queried or questioned what to do about the colour of the baby's skin, which is an absolutely ghastly set of circumstances to be in for Meghan and by extension for Harry. I mean, imagine that. Just for a minute, just stop. Forget who she is. Forget the scale and level of your wealth. Forget whether outside world thinks you should be or shouldn't be there, but you're with someone. And that kind of conversation's had with anyone. Ghastly. There was one quote. So there was that. There was the issue around Harry. I mean, Harry talked, I was surprised, talked about the fact that, Prince Charles didn't return his calls. So there's that issue there. He mentions the fact that him and William are on different paths. So, there's that. I mean, I think what they did, from what I can tell, and again, we have to watch it, but there was a sense of them saying, well, this is the set of circumstances, we're not going to judge the other side for that. And they were trying to set out evidentially their side of the story. There was a lot of talk about her going out to a do at the Royal Albert Hall. And on that night that she went to the Royal Albert Hall, she was at a real low point in her mental health and kept crying every time the lights went down. And there was a really telling moment. There was oh, look, there's Nads. Hey guys, can't wait to talk to you all about that. We can't wait. NADIA, apparently ITV are trimming the show. It's not a full unexpurgated version. That's what I want. I want the whole thing. It's in those details that sometimes not particularly imaginative editors miss. That's where the interest in this is for me. That's where ask them there. If they reduce it from 2 hours down to say an hour or an hour and a half, Nadia, I think that's an absolute travesty because it's in all of the others. It's in all those bits that us as humans read other humans. It's got to be unedited. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. yeah, things like they got married 3 days before. Anyway, so so evidentially, I feel like she was presenting lots of little pockets where she could prove stuff. Obviously, she's gone through that thing with the mail, and she won that case and what have you. But there was one sentence that both hit me and Nad, struck me and Nadia. We talked on the phone earlier today, didn't we, Nad? And that was the one where someone in the royal household said to her, "I think you should keep a low profile. You're everywhere," as in not literally everywhere, but you're all over the press. You're everywhere. And she said she'd only been out for 2 days, so she was everywhere but nowhere. And I think that gives you just a snapshot of what things were possibly like for Diana. And I'm pulling myself up here. The perception of Diana was that she was everywhere. But of course, to the person, to Diana herself, she invariably wasn't, especially not back then when we didn't have online media and all that kind of stuff. She was put everywhere by people chasing her. You can't stop being you walking about your life, if you know what I mean. So if people are choosing to chronicle every aspect of your life, it's going to look like you're everywhere. And it's that strange thing about being in the public eye, which people who aren't in the public eye struggle to understand sometimes. And I've worked with many presenters and actors and people who've said this, which is people assume that just because you're recognizable, you want to be recognized. It's just not true. Or because you are recognizable and you're out, you're wanting to be spotted, noticed, drawn attention. It doesn't ring true. Now, I see lots of people here saying, they're whining, she's attention seeking. Look, there's countless people in the public eye who want the spotlight on them. That in and of itself is not a criticism. It is not something to be criticised. And Nicola Marcello, you're right, in a sense. Could this be the price of fame? I think there's a price of fame, but then I think there's a price of a different type of fame. Now, I just think that everyone's entitled to get into their debate about whether they think Meghan's, just wanting to use this to get a higher profile for herself, all that kind of stuff. You can get into that. But just park all of the ethnicity to the side. That has to be about something completely different. And I think if she encountered the kind of racially charged comments or the colonialist atmosphere that they clearly indicate was the case, and here's a question though. Why would the royal family not be that? It's historically been a principally white, upper class, colonial, imperial organisation. So why wouldn't it be those things? I'd have been surprised if she hadn't met a racist sort of wall of resistance, born of not necessarily viciousness, but born of tradition. Like my nan was inadvertently racist. She gave everyone a fair crack of the whip, whoever she met. But there would be times we must all have relatives who you cringe and go, "Oh my God, you can't say that. You can't say that." And you try as younger people to educate them and make them realise that. For me, the royal family has always, in my cultural assessment of Britain, been like the embarrassing, slightly out of touch grandmother who says the wrong thing. 1 second. Coming back. Does anyone else agree? Do you know what I mean? I would not have stopped loving my nan or my granddad, but their ideas were totally old-fashioned. So it strikes me as very, very likely that she met a well-established resistance to the concept of a woman of colour being within the royal household. So, by that extension, do we not think that culturally, even all of us liberal-thinking white people in this country thought, oh my God, this is a first. Just in thinking this is a first, you're in a sense identifying the fact that this is a woman of colour within the royal family. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I hope she's embraced as fully as anyone else. And are they going to be all right about, inevitably, the fact that they're going to have a mixed race child and all that kind of stuff? I thought, how is this going to play for the royal family? How are they going to deal with this? So when she says that, that rings true. It would be like, for me, in using the family analogy, it would have been like, I don't know, say I had a black girlfriend who met my nan and they said, did you know your nan said this? I'd have been horrified, but I wouldn't have been surprised. And I'd have been like, oh my God. And I would have said, right, probably the first thing I'd have said was, well, don't worry, I'll talk to her. And then if I couldn't budge my nan on it, there would have probably been an issue, wouldn't there, of me being able to take my girlfriend down. So I think, it's easy to forget all of that because all everyone's obsessed about is they're wealthy and they're da-da-da. They're also humans. Regardless of perhaps we don't know the extent to which they feel they've had we feel that they're in the public eye. Lots of people feel they're in the public eye all the time. But you don't know the extent to which they don't feel they've been heard. So I think, again, this is just me sort of talking around this idea of the whole should they, shouldn't they? They have. They've done the interview. And I think Nadia said this a few times. I think it's a really good point. I think there has been low-level racism and some high-level racism, I think, in the coverage. No one's going to acknowledge it because you just, who's going to admit that? No one's ever going to admit that. It's like low-level trolling. No one trolls directly. They troll indirectly. That's how it works. And so the racism works in an indirect way. But I think there's also a lot of issues here with her being American. And I think there's a lot of issues with her being a woman. And I think it's really important. And again, we're going to watch the show, we're going to watch the interview tonight, and we're going to talk about what we think was going on there, and try and read into some of the, inferences around what they're saying. I think she likens her life to that of the Little Mermaid. Like that, for example, for me, I would see likening your life to the Little Mermaid is quite a sort of actressy thing to do. But, we can talk about that without it involving race, sex, or anything. It's a bit actorly. It's a bit actorly, so what? James Flanagan, I think they should have just done a coffee moaning rather than a talk with Oprah. Do you know what I mean, though? I just think, I don't know. I just think I think we should all judge it and talk about it as, it's as much a portrait. Here's the other thing. Here's another side of it. Do we as consumers of the media all want our cake and eat it too? We're all obsessed with what really goes on inside the royal family. We're obsessed with it. Obsessed with it. And in a sense, this is giving us a very different insight, isn't it? It's giving us a very different insight. And maybe one should look at it and sort of not just say, it's true, it's not true. We've got no way of knowing or being able to say what's true or what's not true. Though, again, I want to look into it later when we watch the show. I do think there's quite a strategic laying of, as I say, evidence moments, evidence points. Elsa, but now, okay, so all of the attention is on Meghan and what she's saying. I do personally, editorially, I think it's a weakness if they don't talk to Meghan and Harry about anything to do with her own family. If she's plopping herself on the chair to talk about everything, I think it should be everything in a sense, and that's an editorial issue. That's less to be taken up with Meghan. It should be taken up with Oprah's team. Then Harry said some pretty tough stuff there. And I thought one of the most interesting ones for me, and again, this is less about should he, shouldn't he has. You can tell that he's an emotional guy. You can tell that he's a sensitive and, emotionally complicated individual. And I thought it was really telling when he said that Charles, his father, and William feel trapped. Now, you could go one of two ways with that comment. One of, how dare he talk about them and without them giving them the right reply. What's he doing? I've always thought Prince Charles was trapped. I've always thought Prince Charles was pushing against the idea of what it means to be royal. and all of the kind of obligations of becoming a monarch. Wonder Woman Charles is a hard, unfeeling, bumbling toff. He could be all those things, but he's also someone who has been marginalized and sort of caricatured for when he, like, you know, about the environment and about architecture and about, you know, within his own privileged world, he tries to focus on different stuff. So whatever you think of Prince Charles, and I don't think, you know, I mean, you know, how he was with Princess Diana, all that, whatever you think about that, that kind of makes sense to me. I can imagine that that's true. And it, obviously he's in line to the throne, so he's got no escape. And then William is in a much more invidious position to Harry. Harry's like Princess Margaret to Queen Elizabeth. William has himself little flexibility in choice, and yet he's a younger man. He's of the same generation as Harry. And so I would imagine that generationally, there's a huge difference for the two of them. And you're right, Sue Gilbert, William will have been prepared. There'll have been all sorts of protocols put in place. Paul Jones, I think some people deny the possibility of transgressions by the royals as they are the biggest representation of British culture. To accept that of them is to accept a flaw in our culture. Paul Jones, you're absolutely right. And I think, in a sense, what the monarchy manifests, and in a weird way, I think by, some people have said it's really bad that Meghan hasn't named who said what they said about the baby being black, and other people have said she was trying to protect them. I think the monarchy, the British monarchy, is a manifestation, as it's trying to adjust itself into a modern beast in the modern age. And I think you could argue, going along your lines, Paul, that the monarchy is a manifestation of white privilege in the most extreme way. And that this younger generation, principally manifested by Harry, has, or Laura Taylor, Harry has been racist in the past, is perhaps the royal family trying to fidget its way into a modern, more inclusive role. I don't know. So anyway, so some of the things that you know were said. Some of the things that were said, I think, have some real sort of moments of. I think sometimes one has to listen to things that people say and not just always be in the boat of thinking it's true, it's not true, it's a lie, it's a what. Just think, oh, well, that's interesting. Whether it's true or not true, let's think about that. What does that make me think? Let's just accept it for what it is. Oh, right, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. And I think going back to this whole day, I saw a lot of comments where the amount of concentration, the amount of press coverage on Meghan and her sort of, and Harry's sort of trustworthiness knocks the coverage of Prince Andrew off the scale. Absolutely off the scale. And I think that simply in and of itself tells you so much. Let me have a little look at some more of your comments on the little poll that we did. Just less ASMR. I don't think it's a good thing. They keep going on TV and complaining. Truth, they should stop pulling at the thread. We are in a pandemic, worse things going on. That's very much an opinion that a lot of people are feeling. Fiona Reid, I was talking to someone about it this morning. She made a good point. When Meghan asked for help, then why didn't Harry help? Well, Fiona Reid, I suppose you could argue that Harry did help insofar as he joined her in leaving the firm, in a sense. Dawn Claricoats, I don't really have an opinion on the interview as it doesn't have an impact on my life. I'm just shocked at some of the vile comments that are still coming online. Can't believe Piers Morgan can get away with attacking her so consistently on telly. Felicity Cook, it's just being aired fully in Australia now. I'm not bothering to watch it. Lisa Anila, Harry keeps talking about history repeating itself, yet he hasn't tried to learn from history. Diana regretted her interview. Why would she want to take down the very thing that her son William was destined for? They need to go and live in peace and stop trying to score points. I suppose you could argue that this is the only time they've tried to score points. Lucy Heaney, Harry got help when he had mental health issues. It's odd it wasn't there for Meghan. It's a very good point. You could argue, I mean, you know, maybe this is their one moment in the sun. Maybe this is the interview to end all interviews. Do you know what I mean? Rhys Roberts, the family cut Harry and Meghan off financially in the early part of 2020. If it wasn't for the money of Diana, that Diana put aside for Harry and Meghan would have been destitute. Charles stopped answering him. Yeah, I mean, Charles just stopped returning his calls. I mean, you know, regardless of King of England or future King of England, you know, it's your son. It's your son. I mean, we all have moments with our kids where we're kind of frustrated with them, but you're not ever not available for them. How ironic, they support mental health issues and can't get it herself. Erin Bullimore, royalists are so old-fashioned the notion of a stiff upper lip simply doesn't hold up anymore. It's a harmful idea and yet people still expect it of the royals and praise them for it when they do it. But why would they score points? She took her dad to court. They don't talk to her sister now. All this, I don't know. It's fishy, Jennifer Canada. Well, I do think there could have been some chat about the circumstances and the situation with her family. I mean, yeah, you know, if you want to get into all of that sort of stuff, I suppose you could say it doesn't look good that, you know, neither family is particular, but she's close with her mum. It could just be an issue with her dad, you know. That's why Meghan left. It was only getting worse. Connie H. Can imagine reading that vast stuff about yourself. Sad, really. Seemed a bit one-sided. They're humans, says Sophie J. Matilda. They're not bad people. Humans first, institutions second. I wish them happiness and peace. How has this become about us and what we want? It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it's a sort of like a baying mob. I mean, I think, you know, if this is like their one interview that they're going to do, and, you know, they want to sort of put their side of, you know, I don't think we're going to see many more of these. Maybe this, for them, feels like the safest and most meaningful way to just explain their side of the street, and then they'll just quietly, or not quietly, go off and do whatever it is they want to do in the public sphere. I mean, we were talking about this the other day, I don't feel there's a contradiction necessarily between not wanting to be in the public eye, royal public eye. She's an actress, but wanting sort of recognition in a different field. I don't have an issue with that. Reem AW, happy International Women's Day, absolutely. Interesting to see how many of the newspapers will be thinking of happy International Women's Day as they probably take Meghan down, indirectly probably for being a woman who's speaking out. I've been very outspoken. I genuinely feel, you know, even at times when NADIA thinks perhaps not entirely the same, but I feel that there has been a low-level desire for Meghan to be marginalised, kept at the fringes, not really made to feel like she was quite right to fit in. And I don't see how you can in any way say that's not related to ethnicity if, in a sense, she's the first person of any ethnic or alternative ethnic origin to enter the family in this sense. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I just don't see how, it seems blindingly obvious to me. It just seems blindingly obvious, especially when you look at the press coverage. It's just, you know, and I mean, imagine if you have no right to reply about this. Say the story re Kate and her is true, you know, that she says that it was the other way round, but you've seen the press just run with this idea, and she doesn't want to pull Kate down because Kate isn't a bad person, but at the same time, it's like, hang on a minute, I'm being rubbished here for something that just so wasn't. Like, imagine the feeling of injustice and the inability to be able to say something. You know, first thing I do is I pick up the phone and go, Oprah, let me talk. Do you know what I mean, though? I mean, kind of seriously, though, if you've got no, especially if an entire nation's press coverage essentially has, no, you're right, Karen Ulo, Kate has no right to reply either, though I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, that's the big question off the back of this, and we'll talk about this tonight when we've seen it all. What the hell is the response going to be? Is there going to be no response? Is it going to be a stiff upper lip? What is it? What is the response going to be? Is the best response no response? Guys, hit the thumbs up if you've enjoyed our little chin wag. It's been good. I liked it. It's lots of food for thought. Reese Robertson, that's the ultimate frustration being a black individual in this world, having to tiptoe around micro and often macro aggressions, especially given the British systemic operations of things. Boom. Reese Roberts knocks it to the back of the net yet again. Thank you, Reese. I mean, you know, it's interesting that so many white people can have such a strong opinion on things when they, you know, you can't even begin to imagine what it is or what it could be like to be someone of colour going into an institution like the monarchy. Oh yes, sorry, thanks Arabs Jazz. Very quickly about Boris's bunker before I nip off. Let me just find the story. Well, this is the story that they're going to build something like it's like the scene. Is it the scene room, or you know the room when they got Osama bin Laden and Obama was in that sort of. It was like what's it called? Not an event room. I forget the name of it. It's kind of like a room where big decisions are made, but you're kind of protected and all that kind of stuff. And they're going to build one under Downing Street. It's a bunker, so it's the Boris bunker. Yeah, let me just see if I can find the story so I can just give you in more detail. It's not a media room, it's like a war room. White House style Boris bunker, but there's a name for it in the White House, isn't there? Situation Centre. The Situation Centre. So a £9 million White House style situation room is to be built in the bowels of the Cabinet Office as a hub for the PM. Now, when I saw this story, I didn't sort of react to the cost or I thought, why a bunker? And then I started to think, what do they know that we don't know? Do you know what I mean? How long is he going to be in power? Now, I mean, I think it's for any leader, but it just kind of made me think, what? I don't know why. I mean, I can't, it's crazy having a bunker just felt like, suddenly it felt like, hang on a minute, do they know something we don't know? Do you know what I mean? Does that, that's my, Nicky Thompson, you're there too, yeah. Yeah, why a bunker? Why not just do it in his office with his feet on the table like he was doing the election? I don't know, capital rights. One thing capital rights wouldn't be able to do is get over the fence at the end of Downing Street, that's for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the story, really, is that they're going to build one, they're earmarking some money. I'm amazed it's not costing more than £9 million, though, if it's going to be a sort of, I guess, nuclear proof or whatever. But yeah, it's like the rooms that American presidents sit in. The idea for the SIT-CEN, they call it, Situation Centre. Don't you love these abbreviations? SIT-CEN. That's a Leach, Lisa chair. Leach. That's a co-mug, coffee mug. I don't know. Doesn't really work, does it? Anyway, guys, obviously we're going to be going live straight after the Meghan and Harry tonight. Share your thoughts. There's a thing on our community tab. Share your thoughts about the interview. Was it wise to do it? Was it not wise to do it? What are your thoughts on it? As I say, hit the thumbs up if you've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed nattering with you. I think it's really important in all of these things is sometimes if we have, I would recommend this to anyone, and I do it, try and do it. I don't succeed all the time. Try and do it myself. If you have such a strong, fierce, splenetic kind of feeling about something, sometimes just stop and ask you whether you're being rational and whether it's coming from something that's reasonable or something that's irrational and unreasonable. And I would also say, let's just think about all of this conversation along the lines of the analogy of grandparents, out of touch, not meaning to be racist grandparents. Think of the monarchy like that. Rather than I think us all blindly going, oh, they're fine, you can't touch our monarchy. It's weird. It's like some of the same people are saying, don't knock our monarchy, are also the same people going, why have we got a monarchy? Why are the monarchy so rich? So it's like constantly adjusting the goalposts. So yeah, anyway, have a good day, guys. Lots of love. Speak soon. Oh, there's a green-fingered hell for any gardening fans out there. Me and Nanny Di start our incredible little and large, sort of Morecambe and Wise, chaotic odyssey in the garden for this year. Go and enjoy. Bye, guys.